Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge finale live from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway in Loudoun, New Hampshire, with all our coverage right here on Podium Esports. So happy to have you for our coverage on a beautiful Friday night, beautiful Friday morning, as we would say in Sim. We're alongside Michael Johnson in the broadcast booth. My name is Kenneth Bueno. We'll have Simi Award winner Ryan Bauer pushing all of the buttons tonight using cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. Michael, of course, this event started last year as a way to get around the pandemic that happened, kind of stifled the real-life event, but we're here on the virtual side in 2022, second edition of this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge finale. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight.
Indeed it is. I love watching folks like this with super scientific and mathematical and engineering minds come together. It makes me feel like I'm doing my day job. My day job is racing race cars, and everybody around me is almost half as smart as most of these folks. Some of them are actually as smart as these folks, and the way they come up with stuff and the way they figure things out, I love the process, and I love that we get this opportunity to do it here in the virtual world.
And it's a very unique opportunity for a lot of these people. And this is, in a way, we get to showcase the intelligence and the fun of it all with these people, all students from different colleges across the United States and from Canada and from many places across the entire world, putting cars together in the real life version, and then of course heading to the sim, having some fun here at this very unique New Hampshire Motor Speedway configuration that we'll talk about just now, Michael. And usually when we go to New Hampshire, we think about NASCAR, we think about the Magic Mile, the oval course, and we do use turns 1 and 2 on the NASCAR side, but things get very tricky once you get to turn 3. That little section, those little parts above the road course you see on the screen right now with our images provided by Google Earth. That's a very unique road course, and it's very tricky to handle in real life and in the sim as well.
Absolutely. I was running some laps earlier here with probably similar weather conditions, and I found something interesting with these cars going up. So you come off the oval, you come off that main oval going into that turn 3. It gives you just a little bit bigger arc going around to 4, but that is uphill. And when you go up that hill, the car gets very light. And if you are high in second gear, or I think it was second gear, it might have been third gear when I was coming through there, you kind of have to short shift, because if you don't, you're going to light up those rear tires when the car gets really light going up over that peak, and woo, it's going to get pretty exciting. And then you have to come around down towards turn 5, and this is a big scoop. That is super heavily banked. This is banked here through 5 and 6 more than it is on the oval. The oval here is not a high banking. It's a fairly low banking. Then you come around there and it's kind of a straight really to 9, but not really. And then you dive back in and you cut across, and the next thing you know, you're back at start finish, ready to go back for turn 1.
It's a very interesting road course, a lot of different turns and a lot of different challenges. This track covering over 1.5 miles, 2.49 kilometers to be exact. Of course, this track has history dating back to 1990 in the NASCAR Cup Series. And of course, this track, though, very, very popular with this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge and in real life as well. And to get to know some of the people that are a part of this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric group, we'll bring in a couple of people just to get to know them and, of course, get their thoughts about what's going to be a great racing day here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We'll start with the coordinating manager of Formula Hybrid Plus Electric, Jessica Kinsey. Jessica, first of all, welcome to the broadcast booth here on Podium Esports. So happy to have you as a part of our coverage. And for those at home and watching on twitch.tv/Podium Esports, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do with this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric group.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. So I am Jess Kinsey. I am the coordinating manager of Formula Hybrid Plus Electric and have been on board since 2019. So I have four races, 4 competitions under my belt, 2 virtual, 2 in person, and this is our second virtual iRacing presentation tonight, and we are extremely excited to be here. So yeah, that's just a little bit about what I do.
And of course, like you mentioned, the second time that this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric group heads to the sim on iRacing. And, you know, over the past couple of years, especially after 2020, talking a lot about the relationship now that's really grown between real-life teams, real-life organizations, real-life motorsport, everything getting into sim racing and especially iRacing in general. So how has that been to sort of make that connection as tight as possible since 2020 and starting with this 2021 edition moving into this year?
So that's a great question. We have recognized over the past 2 years how valuable this component has been to our competitors, especially after being on track again this year at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Many of our teams said that this iRacing component helped give them an edge to understanding and getting familiar with the track that they wouldn't have been able to do previously. And because we had so many teams who lacked knowledge transfer over the past 3 years, this component has really been a shining star in our Formula Hybrid plus electric competition.
And so bringing in the sim racing, of course, highlights obviously the real life challenge that happens in person here at this New Hampshire Motor Speedway when you guys come here every spring. And I want to ask about it because, I mean, you have so many students from across the world, different universities that continue to innovate what's been a motorsport world that just strives off of it. Innovation, you see it in the top level teams, you see it in top level organizations. So how has it been like to sort of be a part of that impact where these students, the bright future of motorsport moving forward, starting with these colleges and with these cars that they bring here to this New Hampshire Motor Speedway, how has it been to be a part of this large impact that maybe will shape the future of motorsports with electric and hybrid electrification, if you will, for motors?
It's a great question, and it's been incredibly rewarding to watch, and really rewarding for both Mike and myself to hear the feedback from teams about how this component has been life altering for many of them. So we're excited for what we've been able to do over the past 2 years. We're really excited to see where we can take this over the next few years. And I think, as sim racing progresses, we're going to be right along on the ride.
It's a ride that's going to be a lot of fun for sure. And, coming to this New Hampshire Motor Speedway isn't necessarily the specific config that is run in real life, but it's very close to it. So, I mean, this New Hampshire Motor Speedway, a lot of y'all that come into this track, this track being around since 1990, hosted a lot of NASCAR races, also hosted some IndyCar races here and then. What's your favorite part about this New Hampshire Motor Speedway, this oval, and not only that configuration and the atmosphere around it, but the road course side as well?
I think the challenge that the road course brings, and especially the endurance course that we use in the on-person event at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, I think it's incredibly unique to what other collegiate series are running, and the fact that we at Formula Hybrid plus Electric, when we're in person, we run a 44-kilometer endurance test, which is twice as long as the other collegiate design series. And New Hampshire Motor Speedway gives us a course that is challenging and satisfying and really fun to watch.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to see that in real life sometime in the future. But we're going to be ready for some amazing racing here tonight from the virtual side of the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Of course, Jessica, I want to thank you so much for joining us and talking to us here on Podium Esports. Thanking you so much for all that you do for Formula Hybrid plus Electric. And hopefully we get to talk soon and enjoy the racing out there tonight.
Thank you so much, Kenneth.
That is Jessica Kinsey, the coordinating manager of Formula Hybrid plus Electric. That is not the only interview, though, we'll have here tonight on our pre-race coverage. We'll bring in our next guest, the director of Formula Hybrid plus Electric, Mike Chapman. Mike, of course, welcome to our Podium Esports booth here for this race here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Of course, for the viewers at home, you hold a very important role. What is your role here with Formula Hybrid plus Electric and what they've been able to do over the past couple of years?
All right. Thank you, Kenneth. So Jess and I run the whole competition. That includes both the on-track portion, which is acceleration, braking, autocross, endurance, but also things like the design competition and the project management competition, which are more of our static events. So teams work on a set of rules that's roughly 200 pages long to build either a battery electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle, and that can take 1 to 2 years. And then they bring that to the track every year, kind of end of April, early May, where we run those vehicles through their paces.
And of course, with those cars, we talk about the students, we talk about the colleges from all over the world. Is there sort of a favorite memory from seeing all these colleges, all these students coming around to compete? Because again, it's not only just United States colleges, it's people from all across the world that spend a lot of time and put a lot of their effort into making these cars and being as technologically advanced as they can be. So how has that been like, watching schools from all across the world and different walks of life, different types of people gathering around this New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the goal of winning the challenge?
Yeah, it is extremely rewarding being there on track with these young students. Um, as you mentioned, this year we had teams from both the U.S. and Canada. Usually we would have teams from India, but because of the pandemic, they couldn't participate this year. We've had teams from Spain, Sweden, Russia, Taiwan in the past. And I think that, it's just amazing watching these young engineers work together, solve issues that span mechanical, electrical, power, and also computer science to make their cars really run. And once they leave us, it's really interesting to see where they go. I mean, we've sent students to Ford, GM, Stellantis, the usuals, but they've also gone to Lucid, Tesla, SpaceX, BAE Systems, really a whole range of companies, and it's really cool to see where the students go and to see the contributions that they've made once they leave our competition.
And it's a bright future, of course, in that. And Michael, you've got a question for Mike here in the broadcast booth?
I do. So, Mike, being a professional race car driver myself, of course, I have to ask, how many of these students have at least designs or are actually going on to places like Formula E, Formula One, LMP1, and other electric hybrid professional series? We use a lot of electric and a lot of hybrid. Obviously, Formula E is all electric, but LMP1 is hybrid. Formula One is hybrid. How many of these students at least have designs on going in that direction or actually get there?
Yeah, we have quite a few. I'll give you a case in point. This year and also last year, we had the CTO from Formula One, Pat Simmons, talk to the students via a Zoom call. And one of the questions was, how do I break into Formula One? Because all Formula One cars are hybrids. And what Pat said was, well, you got to get out there, you got to get your paperwork in, you got to tell people that you're really interested in it. And before his session ended, I had a resume and a cover letter in my inbox that I sent to Pat. So these are folks that are really excited about it, excited about the technology, excited about racing, and really want to push things forward.
I had mentioned earlier on how important it is that we have insanely clever and intelligent people behind the scenes. The drivers, we're just a pretty face, and in my case, not always so pretty, but we're just a pretty face out there pushing the pedals and turning the wheel. The real art to the race comes in what folks like this, like your students do. They deal with the issues that are going on. They make the cars work better. I find it incredibly impressive that people at this young of an age are really excited about getting rolling into places like Formula One and Formula E. I hope that we see a lot more of this, because hopefully this kind of sticks into them and they go, wow, this is exciting. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I think we will. I mean, if we go back to the founding of Formula Hybrid Plus Electric, it was founded by the students of Dartmouth College out of the Thayer School of Engineering, when they took a hybrid car to an internal combustion engine competition, and the hybrid was promptly banned. Yeah, it was just a little bit too competitive. So students came back, and instead of designing a new car, they designed their own competition. And that's how we started 16 years ago. So that's the drive that we see from all of the teams at Formula Hybrid Plus Electric.
Well, certainly that's a lot of exciting stuff in terms of what you guys do over at Formula Hybrid Plus Electric, and especially how this virtual race, this virtual challenge is going to continue over the next couple of years, because starting in 2021, first edition, this time we're wrapping it around for a second time throughout and moving forward, maybe hopefully into the rest of the years that follow. So of course, Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us here at Podium Esports, and not only wishing you luck with Formula Hybrid Plus Electric moving on in the future, but everything that's going to be happening in the next couple of years. And we hope you enjoy the racing tonight. Apparently last year's was a lot of fun, so hopefully we get to do it all over again today.
All right. Thank you, Ken and Michael. Really appreciate you supporting us.
That's Mike Chapman, the director of Formula Hybrid Plus Electric. We do have one more interview before, of course, we finish off the interview section before we actually talk to the drivers. Andrew Bena for the New England region of Sports Car Club of America. We'll have him later on in this show. But Michael, we'll turn it over back to you. This is the second edition of this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge, one of the final parts after the real life section where they have the endurance race, the autocross, and all that stuff. What are your expectations for these cars, Formula Renault 2.0s, at a very unique New Hampshire road course?
Well, the Formula Renault is a very light car, the 2.0. There's also a 3.5 version of this car, and it is a great starter car for people who want to get into open wheel racing with downforce. But it's going to be off the hook. They're very fast, but we should probably get through our grid right now.
Indeed we will. This is the grid for race number 1. In the last 15 minutes, we'll have, of course, another race lasting 15 minutes a little later on tonight. It's Francois Schink in the 318 machine will line up on pole. You'll have Alexander Rivera to his outside in the 212. Connor Federico in the 002 will line up third here on the grid. Bunyang Ko in the 201 out of Northeastern University. He'll be starting P4. David De La Fuente out of Illinois Institute of Technology. He'll be wrapping up the top 5. Before you find Kyle Thorne out of the Milwaukee School of Engineering, he'll be P6. And Andrew Bena, who we will interview a little bit later on in tonight's coverage here on Podium Esports, I believe did not set a qualifying time, so he will start in P7. It's a standing start here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, something we're not used to seeing, but green flag out in the air for the first race here in this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge. And already, Michael, Francois Schink already up to a really good jump over Alexander Rivera at a turn 1 and 2 of the NASCAR course. They shift for turn 3 and up the hill into the road course section.
Oh, and we've already got just a little bit of contact that unfortunately results in more. Looks like 3 of them made it through okay. 1 still stuck in the wall, just getting out. But beautiful start, just as you mentioned. Sometimes having that clutch bite point set just right really helps you. I had a race earlier today at a different track in these virtual Formula 2.0, Renault Formula 2.0 cars, and I got a brilliant launch because I had my clutch bite point set perfectly. And again, it's about knowing what your parameters are and setting just the right thing. And I had my bite point set. I got a beautiful launch, but look at this right here, sitting in the draft, going to go look up the inside as they head towards turn 1, getting his nose in there. Rivera goes inside and takes over P1, but Schink is not going to let that happen for long. He's going to tuck back in right behind him. We should see some exciting stuff as we get outside into the we would normally call the infield part of the track, but here it's kind of the outfield.
And Schink already losing the lead and backed off before turn 3, a very narrow portion of the racetrack, Michael. A lot of drivers not looking to make passes there because things get very squirrely. And of course, the bumps there out of the corner going up the hill to turn 4. Saw a lot of drivers in practice get loose and spin the cars out, trying to just get a little bit too much on the throttle. As for note, David De La Fuente, looks like Connor Federico and Kyle Thome were 3 cars involved in all different incidents here in the opening lap here in this race. But fortunately for all of them, damage is not included in these races, so you can kind of scuff these things up a little bit, maybe hit the wall, get into an incident, but the car will not be damaged enough beyond repair. You'll still be able to get back on the track and be able to put in as many laps as you can. But what a run so far. The pass, Michael, by Alexander Rivera, it looked like Schink was going to have maybe a retaliation pass, but Schink holding back here, losing time to your race leader.
Schink doing the smart thing here, honestly. So I found myself being passed on an opening lap many times, and it never bothers me because I know that guy is using up his tires, using up his fuel, using up his body. And I say this every broadcast, whoever's listening, hold on to your head because it's about to explode. Racing is not about speed. I know that sounds really weird, but racing is about efficiency. And speed is the byproduct of efficiency. And when you watch these drivers get out here and really start to focus, they really get super efficient, and they're watching what they're doing. Notice how Schink there, he could have gone all the way up to the wall, gone a little bit faster, but he decided to sit in that draft. He put the car perfectly behind Rivera and decided, no, I'm going to sit in the draft, and I'm going to use a little bit less fuel, a little bit less tire, and I'm going to get more speed out of it. So remember, it's about efficiency, and speed is just the byproduct.
You could also take note that maybe Schink is probably looking at Rivera, seeing what things are working on his driving style, seeing what he's doing right, what he's doing wrong, and he can learn from it and be able to extend that, maybe exploit some of the weaknesses out of Rivera. Not close enough right now to make any moves, still about a second behind. We'll keep monitoring the battle for the race lead as the battle for third starting to heat up. Andrew Brenna under fire from Bunyan Co. in the 201. The 371 trying to hold position very loose. Goes Co there out of the last turn before you get back to what usually is NASCAR 3 and 4, the New Hampshire section. But you go through this little kink down to this left-hander, you get over the bumps, and then is when you really get back to the start-finish line. But in a way, I mean, Michael, good point there about efficiency on the racetrack, not always being about speed. And in a way, you can relate it to the Formula Hybrid Plus Electric group and what they do in real life every single year. It's not always about who's got the fastest car, who's got the best lap time. Usually it's about a multitude of different disciplines, endurance, you go autocross, you do many different things that test all aspects of the car. So you're not only just thinking about straight up putting your foot flat to the floor and just going for it. You're thinking more about every single detail in the car, and you have to really get a collective effort in order to make something happen positively.
Absolutely, you do, and I think a lot of people misunderstand what racing is about. But when you watch these folks right here, we're watching Andrew Brenna and Co. try to go at it, and they're not going to push too hard. And we were just back up on Rivera and Schink, but here we are on Brenna and Co. They are both going to decide over time. We've got a little bit of time. Now, I know it says we have 200 laps. We don't really have 200 laps. We're only 6 laps into this, and it's about a 15-minute race. So we'll see 15 minutes plus most of a lap. Usually it's like you hit it with 20, 30 seconds left. They're going to really time it out. Now, starting as far back as he was, Andrew's not going to necessarily be able to make up to the front. He's a very fast driver, I can tell you from experience. He and I have gone door to door, mirror to mirror, nose to tail many, many times. But we're on board right now with our pole sitter, Schink. He is now closing this up. He was out at 1.1 seconds earlier. He's got it down to about 3/4 of a second, right at 0.8, opening up just a little bit. Right here, this is a difficult section. Boom, right there. The car will bottom out depending on how you have it set up. So do you want to set the car up to be low for the rest of the track, or do you want to let that compromise happen for that one spot? I think most people are letting the car actually bottom out through that little sector right there. And look how he takes that tight line on the inside. He's definitely trying to close this up. He's now watching and saying, all right, I know I'm lap 7 in here, and I know we've got 7 minutes past, and we're about at the halfway point. So it's time to make it happen as we got a spinner. Yeah.
That was Federico, Connor Federico, the 002, spun right in front, and now Schink is going to go to the outside for the race lead on lap 7. A beautiful pass by your pole sitter, Rivera, shaken up a little bit after that spin, of course, notably so. Didn't want to get into him and cause a larger incident than needed to be. Federico in an incident there, and all of a sudden, Rivera gives back the race lead to Francois Schink, the 318, back to P1.
And that's the way racing goes. You have someone who's a back marker, or even someone you're battling, spin right in front of you. You have to slow down and avoid, and that means someone else is getting closer who is not going to necessarily have to avoid it because it's clear when they come through. So someone's making up time. In that case, it worked for Schink.
But Rivera is not going to give up easily, though. In a turn 3, hard braking zone, usually you can make some passes there, although it just gets very narrow. You crest over the hill, then go into this very interesting section. You go a left-hander, and it's a banked corner. I don't see that a lot, Michael, on road courses, especially the FIA Grade 1 or most road courses. You don't see a lot of banking in a corner there. Rivera's going to use it to his advantage. We'll go up the hill, back down. We'll head for the sharp left-hander before entering back into what's the outside wall in the back straightaway here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Going to use all of the curb, and all of a sudden Rivera is back in it. Rivera, part of the Worcester Polytechnic Institute in the United States, of course, a mechanical engineer on that team, and he's been on iRacing for a year or so, on and off, and Michael, I think we see that a lot with this group of drivers, only 7, but a lot of them from different schools, of course, different positions on each team when they build the cars in real life, and obviously a lot of them with different racing experience on the sim. Some of them have been only on for a little bit, some of them this is their first time on the sim, some of them last year was their first time on the sim in the virtual challenger, some of them have been around for a couple of years. It's awesome to see just the uniqueness, the diversity in not only the schools, not only the representation of each driver, but how they've been sim-wise versus racing in real life.
And it's interesting to note, even as engineers, mechanical, electrical, whatever, you always have a butt meter. Sure, you've got your ohm meter, you've got your ammeter, you've got all these other things, but there's also the butt meter, and it means you're feeling what's going on in the car. And that's really a driver's job, is to relay back to the engineer on the pit wall what's going on with the car. And we're watching some very good draft technique happen right here. We're going to see Rivera come up towards the inside, close down up underneath, get the nose in there. Can he hold on to it? The faster line is down low right there when you get side by side, because that outside car doesn't have the room to move. Now we're watching Schink trying to fight back. But going back to the point of being able to feel it. In a sim, you're only able to feel through the wheel in most cases. There are some people who have these $150,000 rigs that move around and do all kinds of crazy stuff. I wish I had one, but I don't. The only feedback I get is through the wheel. I don't get to feel it from the seat of the pants. I don't get the butt meter going. So it is very difficult. And knowing how to drive a sim is almost, or is in many ways, I should say. It's not almost, it really is different, but in many ways it's similar. Many ways it's different from driving in what I often call the meat space, or other people call real life.
You know, I've never heard of a butt meter before. That's very interesting from a driver's standpoint. But you could still get your butt clenched when you race in the sim, especially if things get hairy, no doubt. But
yeah, Nick and Diamonds, as they say.
Yes, indeed, as Francois Schink has fallen back just a little bit on Rivera, about half a second. This time we'll bring it back in out of turn 3. Unfortunately, we haven't seen many issues. Actually, never mind. Schink had a big wiggle there coming up the hill out of turn 3 was what I was worried about, Michael. Seen a lot of drivers in practice get loose out of that corner and spin the race car around. Schink, fortunately, did not go for a full 360. That is going to lose him some time on the race leader.
And that's exactly what I was talking about when we were talking pre-race, is that one spot when you're coming up through 4, when we were talking about the track map, the car gets very light right there, and a really smart thing to do is short shift. You might feel like you're in the wrong gear, but if the rear end of the car comes around, well, you're definitely in the wrong gear, because you're going backwards probably, and you need to hit the brakes, put it in first, spin it back around, and get back in the race.
Well, we had a couple of drivers end up on pit road, multiple laps down. David De La Fuente went for a wild ride entering turn 3, hopped over the tire barriers. There he is now exiting turn 3 up the hill. He is now 1 lap down. Connor Federico in the 002. Remember, went for that spin in front of the race leaders. He is now 3 laps down and counting. Hopefully we can see him get back out on the racetrack. The student for the University of Victoria over in Canada, and the powertrain sub-team lead on the position of his team in real life, and actually had participation in this year's virtual event. And this really was the first trip on iRacing that the driver, the 002 Federico, is doing here tonight. So cool to see that he's taking his first steps on iRacing here with this virtual challenge, and things have opened up significantly. I think, Michael, a big mistake out of Francois Schink in the 318. I think had a spin or just a big moment coming out of what appeared to be, actually that was entering turn 3, trying to catch up to your leader. The car just ended up shifting into a wrong gear. Not sure exactly what happened. The drivetrain went all out of whack. The car went for a spin.
Rivera's dumped it into pit road. Rivera has gone into pit road. I'm wondering if he didn't have enough fuel. That could be. And he's up on jacks. He's getting tires as well. So probably fuel and tires. That's why he was so quick. He was short fueled. And now Schink is our leader. Ko is about 2.5 seconds back. But Schink retakes the lead. Did not, even though he had a spin, did not have to go in to the pits for any repairs, fuel, or tires.
And this is in the final minutes as well, Michael. So a big call by Rivera. It sends him back to 5th, and now he's really going to have to pick up everything. One car going hard into the tire barrier. Going to try to identify who that was. That is Connor Federico, who just got back out on track. He's in the gravel trying to pick himself back up. Fortunately, nobody else is involved, but there's going to be a lot of time that Rivera, Michael, has to pick up here, not only on your race leader, but everybody else behind. And also, don't look now, Bunyan Ko in the 201, the driver out of Northeastern University, the drivetrain project member for his team, now picking up some time, 2.5 seconds back on P1.
Yeah, he's definitely closing this up, though. He was about 3.5 seconds back not too long ago, and now he's down to 1.5 seconds. This is an interesting little drive here from Ko, making best use of his tires, his fuel, and his body. This is exactly what you're supposed to do. This is perfectly what I was talking about, 100%. Being very aware of your surroundings, using every bit of the tire up as appropriate, using every bit of the fuel as appropriate. You get stuck out front for too long and you're not able to draft, you're using extra fuel, and that is a consideration you must make. When I'm on the racetrack, my statistician and the person calling the race for us, oh no, and we got a spin. We have yet another spin. That's a bummer. But my statistician asks me every time by, what's the number on the dash? He's asking for the fuel number. It's how much fuel I used, depending on the car, down to the thousandth of a gallon. So we know exactly how much fuel is being used. And if I'm behind cars or if I'm out in front, we know exactly how much that's going to affect kicking on down the road later in the race.
And how tough is that as a driver? I mean, you think about obviously driving the racetrack, trying to be as fast as possible and not get too comfortable here, especially if you're in the race lead. It can be easy to get comfortable and lose some time. How hard is it to calculate all of that with your team while at the same time trying to measure your car out on track and trying to stay as fast as possible?
I'm just a dumb driver. I just tell them the numbers. But yeah, actually, I do actually want to do some calculation. I will think about it. And you have time on straightaways like we're coming down here. But by the time you cross start finish right there, it's time to refocus, get back into the game, go around this corner. And then when you come out and you're right up on the wall, which he's actually so far out front, he doesn't need to get quite that far out. He's pulled out about 3 seconds, 2 seconds. So you don't really need to. As we look at Barney, the flagman there, this is the final lap. So we are running our last lap here, and this is our leader, Shink, with 2.5 seconds over Ko.
Indeed so. Shink, the pole sitter, up at the front of the field on that standing start, lost the lead to Alexander Rivera, but since then picked it back up. Rivera heading for pit road. Rivera has since climbed back to P4, but the distance may be too large to cover. And out of the final handful of corners here in this very interesting New Hampshire Motor Speedway road course, final corner here for Shink, and the 318 will win race number 1 here in this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge. A beautiful drive out of the 318, and you can't also disregard the fight of the 201. Bunyan Ko coming in second, Kyle Thome in a great fight with Alexander Rivera. They're side by side out of the final corner. Rivera will have the nose ahead, and Rivera will step onto the podium. Thome not able to get enough speed out of the last corner in the 004. There's Andrew Bena. We'll talk to him in the 371. He wraps up the top 5. David De La Fuente will finish in P6. There he is out of the final corner. And unfortunately, it's not the best finish for Connor Federico, but kept his foot in it, kept his heart in it as well. He finishes P7, 3 laps down. There he is, coming out of the final corner. And we'll head for the start-finish line. Barney the flagman with the checkered flag in hand, and most of the field already getting set for the second race. That is right, Michael. Not only is this first race existent, there is a second race here as well. We'll take a look at the full field results. There is Francois Shink in the 318 to the win. Bunyan Ko in second. Alexander Rivera in third. Thome over in P number 4. Andrew Bena wrapping up the top 5. And then David De La Fuente, P6. Connor Federico, P7. But there is another race here. More 15-minute action here in New Hampshire Motor Speedway. So if you didn't have the first race wrapped up, you can have the second one go to your favor if things didn't go right that first time.
Yeah, sometimes you just catch a little piece of grass. There's a thing here in iRacing that people jokingly call ice grass. And man, when you catch it, it'll just take your car and spin it around. It really doesn't feel like real life. There's so much wonderful physics and thought and programming put into iRacing. It's very easy to pick out the little oddities that they do, like that ice grass. But you know, it's something you are aware of, and it's something you deal with. at least in iRacing, you don't have a cut tire, you don't have a blow. Well, you can have a blown motor, but you generally don't get one. You don't get those little oddities that happen in real life racing. And as I say that, I want to make the comment: this is real racing. It's just in the virtual world. This is real racing. These people are racing each other. They are sitting in cockpits with steering wheels and throttles. They're not necessarily using their controllers to do this. It's the real thing. So when I say real racing, I'm really thinking more of real life meat space racing.
All right, so we'll be able to talk to a couple of the drivers here in just a couple of moments. We'll bring in Boon Yang Ko in the 201, who comes home to finish second in our first 15-minute feature here from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway, the driver out of Northeastern. And Boon, of course, a great finish at the end. You held a very quiet yet stealthy run, and you were close to the race leader, not close enough, but still a great P2 to start off this first event. Boon, do we have a copy?
Yes, copy.
There we go. All right, Boone. Well, of course, welcome to the Podium Esports booth. We had you finish second here in this first 15-minute race. How was it? What were your thoughts after the race, especially coming home second, just short of the race leader?
The first lap was really chaotic. I really didn't know what was going on. It might have been my fault. I'm not sure. So the first lap was basically a recovery to get my momentum back, and it was really rough trying to recover, especially with the overheated tires. But I just tried to drive with the mentality of finishing the race, and slowly incidents followed in front of me, and I managed to pick up some lucky places.
You know, sometimes in racing, we see drivers put up stealthy races, and it doesn't need to be an eventful one all the way to get to the finish, and helps you in this P2 effort. And I'll ask you about your involvement here in Formula Hybrid plus Electric, of course, part of Northeastern, one of the universities that's in contention in real life, the drivetrain project member. And how is that to work in real life and also in the sim here with this Formula Hybrid plus Electric group?
It's really interesting because I've been involved in this iRacing virtual racing team, and I've been working a bit on the setup for the VRC event. But I've been more involved in the drivetrain aspect and really trying to get the differential working in the real car. So even though I didn't get to test the real car built by the team, it would have been really interesting to see how I can use my knowledge to further develop and get a right setup for maybe next year.
And of course, you put up a lot of great performances so far in that first race. And of course, Northeastern coming home second in that electric class. And so, second race here, you finished first 15 minutes. Anything you've learned from that first race to bring into the second and maybe get a race win here?
Definitely gonna watch out for the first corner. I'm definitely gonna. I'm running a single monitor setup right now, so it's gonna be tough. But I'm gonna make use of my looking left and looking right function and try to avoid chaos, especially in the first lap, and hopefully it'll get better from there.
All right, Boom. We certainly appreciate the time. Of course, a big congratulations on the second place finish here in the first 15-minute race for Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge. And we hope to see you out, maybe talk to you after the second race. Best of luck out there.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me.
As a driver of the 201, Boon Yang Ko, who comes home P2 in that first race. We're bringing the driver who barely nosed ahead of Kyle Thome at the start-finish line and finished in third. Alexander Rivera caught up with Michael Johnson.
So, Alexander, we're guessing that that beautiful lead you had recovered and lost and then re-recovered, and then it went back and forth, that ultimately got lost was due to fuel. Is that a good guess?
Yeah, that's correct. I just made a stupid error loading up the setup. I created a setup based off of the VRC event that happened earlier, and I added enough fuel, and then when it came to grid on the race, I took the one from the event that had 10 minutes of fuel. So just a stupid error on my part.
So there was some pretty good pressure. Francois Schink was letting you get away and then would close it down, and then he had a fortunate point to be able to capitalize on a mistake of a spinning car in front of you. Do you think you could have kept it? Do you think you could have kept him behind you, or was it just massive pressure and it could have gone either way?
No, I felt pretty comfortable. I was just controlling the race up front. Managing the gap. If he tried to bring it down a couple of tenths, I tried to push it for the extra couple of tenths the next lap. So it was just managing it up front.
So, with that confidence, you're going to win the next race, right?
I hope so. Let's hope I actually remember to put the fuel in the car.
Yeah, please remember to put the fuel in the car. One quick question about applying what you do with your team in school and in real life to what you're doing here in iRacing. How much of that actually are you able to kind of toss back and forth?
I think it's a mixture. Obviously, iRacing here, there's so many different setup options. There's so many different variables you can change. And my school is a first-year EV team. I think this year in particular, we focused really particularly on just getting the basis right. Having a car that's working, reliable, and then later making it go fast. So I think it's kind of interesting because you take all the base kind of information that you learned from building the formula car, all the spring rates, all the push rod lengths. That's something that particularly transferred over into the Renault 2.0. And you take all that information, you can apply it to this car, and then there's that learning factor of, okay, you have that base setup on now, and now you have to go in and go in depth and kind of look at what each individual component will do to improve the setup.
So very cool. Nice to hear that things do transfer. I find the same. I mean, I race for a living. This is how I pay my mortgage, how I take my girlfriend on vacation. So I find there's so much in iRacing that really does work. The knowledge from real life comes to iRacing, and actually some things go back the other way. I pick up things in iRacing. But who do you have to thank for your finish today?
Myself? No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, there's a whole team behind me. One of my good friends, Alexander Clank, helped with the setup early on. The whole team has been massively supporting myself doing this, and well, honestly, we built an electric car, which is the big thing. So I gotta thank all the team and all the sponsors for helping us do that.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you were here. But you heard it here first. He's going to win the next race. So let's see how that one plays out. Alexander Rivera, thank you for being here. But next, I have one of our well-known racers, Andrew Benna. I have raced with you many times in SCCA Racing online. How did it work today? We saw a little incident with you, but we're not going to talk about that. We'll go along to the brilliant parts of the race. So what worked brilliantly for you today?
What worked brilliant for me was, as usual, I got a good start. However, I appreciate. Let's not talk about those few little errors, which as you transition between driving a real car and driving a sim car, there is a distinct change, and you have to be more heads up around, maybe where grass is.
Do you find, so I was mentioning earlier with someone about the ice grass. Do you find the same ice grass phenomenon that I do?
Oh, 100%. So we have front wheel drive Golfs that we race all the time. And with that limited slip that we have in that car, you can go through and you can use all of the track and you can use a little bit of grass too. And it is a racing surface, not so much an iRacing.
Exactly. I would love to talk to you more about this because we have great stories going back and forth, but you've got a race car to get in and go do another 15-minute race.
Yeah, I do. And hopefully I will spoil Alexander's day on being able to take that next win.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. He thought he was getting first, but Andrew says no. It's going to be Andrew's win today. Kenneth.
Hey, some bold calls. I like it. I like it for the second race, 15 minutes we'll have here from the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And the fastest in practice was Boonye & Co. But of course, and we're not going to have off of those times to measure our grid in the second race. It'll be Francois Schink in the 318. Won the first race. We'll try to do it all over again here with Boonye & Co. to his outside in P2. Alexander Rivera, remember, he finished third ahead of Kyle Thome. He'll start third. Thome will finish alongside him, and he'll start this race in P4 in that second row. Andrew Benna, who we just finished talking to in the 371, he'll try to spoil Alexander's day starting from fifth. He'll have David De La Fuente to his outside in P6. Final driver in the grid, Connor Federigo, looking for a better run here in this second feature race. He starts dead last, P7. And again, a standing start here from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Very different from what we usually see here in the northeast of the United States, but the revs are up. The Formula Renault 2.0s are ready to go, and the green flag's in the air, tires squealing, and here comes Rivera inside for the lead, 3 wide to turn 1.
Yeah, taking a very nice start. Beautifully done right there, getting that clutch bite point. Last time we saw that Schink got it. Francois had a beautiful launch last time, but Rivera just taking it perfectly and able to slide right up the inside. But now we watch them going through turn 4 where the car gets very light coming up over the hill. Doesn't look like we've had any incidents. Everyone's kind of holding on just a little bit. Nobody wants to push it too hard on this first lap with cold tires.
That's definitely true, because Bunyan-Ko went from 2nd to 5th and was the victim of an outside pass as the leaders get together, all 3 of them coming down the hill. That is Rivera, that's Schink, that is Thome, all 3 of them involved in the incident, and Andrew Benna will take over the race lead. He made a brilliant pass in turn 3, Michael, ahead of Bunyan-Ko, and as the leaders get into a scuffle, Andrew Benna says, all right, I'm the lucky man here, I'm going to run away with it.
Yeah, I can tell you from racing with Andrew, he definitely is a very good, very observant driver. He did not get caught up in that incident. He saw stuff happening. He could see those cars starting to wiggle a little bit. He knew they were pushing a little bit too hard on cold tires, and he was the catbird. He was in the catbird seat. He was ready to jump on the opportunity, and somehow all 3 cars in front of him just went into this tandem, or I guess it wouldn't be tandem with 3, random. I'm not sure what it is with 3, but anyway, 3 cars spinning beautifully in front of him and zips right by, staying on line and able to get around.
Well, fortunately, of course, again, no damage issue to these cars, so they're able to get back up, but the biggest loss is the track position. Rivera is able to stay in 4th, Kyle Thome is in 5th, Francois Schink is able to stay in P6. Connor Federigo looks like he's gone back to pit road. He is still 7th, and I believe we'll go 1 lap down here as your leader, Andrew Benna, will come out to turn 1 and 2. There's a look at the couple of cars that are still left in this thing. David De La Fuente in 3rd. Again, he didn't finish too well in that first 15-minute feature, but with those incidents and being able to steer clear from it, De La Fuente now moves to 3rd. De La Fuente, part of the Illinois Institute of Technology. He's their aero team lead on their car project that they bring to the Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Challenge in real life every single year. So cool to see De La Fuente in the series as he locks it up just a little bit going into turn 4, turn 5. And some of the weirder parts of this New Hampshire road course. And these cars, Michael, didn't talk about them too much. The Formula Renault 2.0, of course, kind of similar, of course, way beefed up from what you usually see in the Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Challenge in real life, but still a very interesting car to kind of measure driver skill, measure driver patience, and a lot of other things. It's one of the first steps to Formula One. It's only 213 horsepower underneath the hood, but it's over 1,100 pounds. So it's a great car to race, and a very fun one, in fact, on the sim.
Yeah, if you hop in this car and start to drive it and someone tells you it's only 200 horsepower, you wouldn't believe them. This car will do well over 150 miles an hour. I've had these cars around me because I work with several different schools out there, and I've been in these cars working with students, and I can tell you, you can do 160 if you get things just right. It'll get up and boogie, that's for sure. Now the aero, I'm curious if there was any CFD stuff going on, because we have our CFD guy here. Did he try to model this car and figure out the right way to do the aero? I would do it. I mean, I'm enough of a nerd that I would totally do that. I would go, okay, well, let me get a model of the car and let me put it into my CFD and see what happens.
That makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, I know nothing about mechanical engineering or anything race-wise or aerodynamics, so I don't think I can really talk about that too much. But still, I mean, you're seeing it all on the track right now. Bunyan-Ko, watching him in P2, just behind Andrew Benna, has closed in about 2.5 seconds. Sort of the same dilemma he was in that first race, catching up to your race leader, or rather it was for Francois Schink, who was trying to catch up to Rivera around the same gap before things drastically changed, and Bunyan-Ko was able to finish up in the top 3. And Ko trying to do the same thing here as Bena has hold on to the lead, and I think has kind of ironed out some of the wrinkles, some of the mistakes, Michael, from that first 15-minute race. And again, that's why you have the magic of 2 races. You race the first one, you get a feel for how it's like after practice in race condition, and then you get in the second race and say, all right, I'm going to flip the switch. Here's what I've learned. I'm going to apply it, and here I am on the racetrack running faster than ever. Bena holding on to the race lead.
But do remember, one of the things we haven't really been able to get a handle on, at least from the engineering perspective, is the dreaded commentator's curse.
Oh no.
Oh no, that's right. The commentator's curse. It has a way of just creeping in there. I've been the victim of it, and I've delivered it a few times. So it's kind of one of those things that you just don't see coming.
I have been a victim of it so many times. I could count. Actually, if I counted, it would be too much. If I had a dime for every time I've jinxed somebody on track, jinxed an event on track, I would be richer.
Then you could afford to be in a real race car in the 24
exactly.
hours of Le Mans, right?
I could, yeah. I could be one of the more than 60-plus entries that are going to be racing this weekend. But hopefully that doesn't happen to Ben out here, holding on to the race lead. Still about 2.5 seconds, 2.7 seconds above Bunyan-Ko in P2. Most of the field around separated, and also to note, Alexander Rivera has stepped into P3. David De La Fuente has fallen off to P4. Well, just a reminder that, of course, our Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge is brought to you by the fine folks at Formula Hybrid Plus Electric. Formula Hybrid Plus Electric gives students hands-on experience with the challenges of creating and implementing a wide variety of technologies while being a part of an interdisciplinary team. Their students get a unique opportunity to turn classroom concepts into tangible skills and to also interact with some of the most talented professionals in emerging technology industries. For more information, if you want to learn more, you can visit their website and find out all about Formula Hybrid Plus Electric at www.formula-hybrid.org. A great organization, of course, involving not only this virtual side that we're seeing here tonight. We don't get the full grasp of what the real-life version is all about when they kick it off every single spring. I mean, just a beautiful thing to see. The bright minds of the future, maybe the pioneers of car electronics, of engineering, of into whatever you think about the cars you see on the road and on the racetrack. I mean, these minds may be behind those projects moving forward. Later, as De La Fuente goes for a spin out of the final corner, exactly what you said, Michael, the ice grass, and guess who goes by? Race winner from last time out, Francois Schink in the 318.
Yeah, Schink getting lucky there. He was closing down at a decent rate. It wasn't certain he was going to make it before the end of the race. We're just past the halfway point here, but Schink had a good opportunity. But you know what? There's a race series that I call, and there's a guy in the race series that I call Mr. Sneaky. I think I have a new Mr. Sneaky, because Bunyan-Ko has closed up this gap to 8 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, 9 tenths, right around just under a second on Andrew Bena. He is really being super smooth about this, and just like I was saying before, it's about efficiency, and he's been very efficient in his use of his car, use of his tires and his fuel, and he has closed this down to Andrew Bena. I don't know if Andrew is just kind of toying with him, because I can tell you Andrew does that. He's done it with me, and I've done it with him too. It goes both ways. But Bunyan-Ko has closed this down to right at a second, so this is about to get exciting.
And this is solid pace to Michael out of Bunyan-Ko, because again, we're halfway through this race, so if he can keep this pace up, he'll probably be in the race lead by the time this thing is all said and done. Of course, still a lot of time before this race ends, and with this 15-minute time limit, we usually have around 16, 17 laps, roughly around that edge where we finish this race and throw the checkered flag out. Bunyan-Ko trying to make sure he can pressure Bena into a mistake. Closed it in by about a second. Almost lost it there in that final corner last time around, but a very clean exit there off of the final corner to the main front straightaway to the start-finish line. And this is where, Michael, things are going to get very dicey, because the draft will start to play a factor here in NASCAR 1 and 2. Bena's going to arc it out way to the outside before closing in. That might help him going into turn 3, but Bunyan-Ko is there.
Yeah, and I just looked back and I found out what happened. It wasn't so much Bunyan-Ko being Mr. Sneaky. It was Andrew Bena having a little bit of an error going up into that turn 3-4 complex. He was right in between 3 and 4, Looked like he got a little bit too much power down maybe, and the car just got wiggly. Put him into a very bad position. He was comfortable out front. Now, 0.8 of a second, very uncomfortable place for him to be.
And again, I talked about it in that first race. When you're the leader, of course, you have all advantage to set the tone, set the rhythm of the race. But if you're also in the lead, you can get into what I call the overthinking zone. You're all out in front. You've got nobody else to race. And you start making those little minute mistakes because you're really overthinking every bit of your driving style. And right now, Benna is losing a bit of time. Of course, not enough to call it dangerous right now as of lap 11. But Bunyanko is there. And I think that may be enough as a driver to play some of the mental games with the leader and maybe force their hand into something in a situation where they don't want to be in a big close-up into turn 3 that might help Bunyanko get a good run out of turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. By the way, also to note, guys, or at least Michael, not too far away, Alexander Rivera may spoil the party if things get a little bit too crazy.
Yeah, last lap through 58.405. Wished it was a 48. 58.405 for Andrew Benna. 58.422 for Bunyanko. So pretty much the same lap. But Alexander Rivera, 58.048. He is closing this down on his own. It could be a really tight finish here. We've got about a little over 3 minutes to go in this race. That's going to be right at 3 laps. So that is well within the realm of being able to close down, especially once Rivera starts to get into the draft. See Co right now sticking in the draft of Benna. Benna trying to hold on as he goes into the brake zone to turn 3, gets the car rotated around, starts to put the power down gently, little bit of a wiggle going through turn 4. But now down the hill as they go into this super bank corner. And look, right there, just outside of, on the top of your screen, that's Rivera. He is closing this down.
And the far side, you can see that black and red, number 212, Formula Renault 2.0, who's closing in on Bunyanko. And Michael, I think this is one of the test moments if you're a race car driver, because you're going to start to play offense and defense at the same time if you're Bunyanko. How do you tackle this if you're in the middle of this sandwich?
Usually just panic. That's what happens. You panic. You don't know what to do. Honestly, for me, I focus forward. I don't care what's behind me. I mean, I do. I'm going to watch and make sure they're not close enough to make a dive or something. But the real answer here is look to the front. You need to see what's going on because that's what's really important for you. That's your goal, especially at this point of the race.
And that was a big mistake, I figure, there by Bunyanko in the 201, because the 212, Alexander Rivera, caught hugely in the entrance of turn 3. Looks like Co's trying to maximize the braking zones and is locking it up a little bit too much, so losing some time on your race leader. And Rivera is looking to spoil the party for second and maybe even first. More smoke coming out of the left side of Bunyanko's machine. It is starting to lock up more and more every given lap. And we are coming down to 3 laps to go, 2.5 minutes left in this second race. And here comes Rivera out of the final corner.
I think Bunyanko is doing exactly the wrong thing. He's doing what we call driving your mirrors. We're going to watch Rivera here stick his nose in, take that tight line down underneath. And then there's contact. Oh no, contact, and Rivera goes into the wall. Bunyanko trying to control it, gets spun around backwards. Bunyanko into the wall very lightly, able to get the car back around, but that leaves Rivera in second place.
Oh, that was a huge moment, and unfortunately, it's going to send Bunyanko to third, maybe even fourth, if Francois Schink in the 318 can get around. Rivera tried to put the nose to the inside, drifted up high, and they both met in the middle, both of them making contact. And now Rivera going for a slight detour in the gravel in a turn 5, turn 6, and that's only going to help Andrew Benna on the 371 open up to a 7-second lead with only 2 laps left to go. If you're this 371, you're loving the look in the rearview mirror. You're happy to see that they're not putting any more pressure on you. But for Rivera and Co, putting up a fantastic fight, would have made it a 3-horse battle to the finish, unfortunately making contact in turn 1.
Yeah, and Benna right now, literally nothing in his mirrors. It's 8 seconds back to Rivera. I don't even know if we'll see him enter the picture. Yeah, he doesn't even enter the picture as we watch Benna come into turn 3, trying to get the power down. All he needs to do now is drive the car home. We are at 15 minutes, so this is going to be the point where he just focuses forward. Doesn't matter what the gap is to the back as long as it doesn't close up too quickly. he's got this in the bag.
And all he has to do is just putting these laps as cleanly as possible, avoid all the mistakes. And this
Like
should
a
be
luck up
win.
right there.
Rivera is closing up though, now 5 seconds here on the 371, so it may not be over. The time may not allow it though, as Benna will come out of the final corner, will approach the barrels here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and they're spawning the flagman with the white flag. 15 seconds left. This is the last lap. One car in front, Connor Federico, will be just a little bit ahead of this 371, but it won't be too big of a factor. Going into turn 3, Rivera is trying to get back in the game, Michael, but Benna just needs a couple of clean corners, and it should be a second race win.
Yeah, Andrew, again, experienced racer. He doesn't even need to pass Connor. I think, is that Connor in front of him? Yeah, I believe it's Connor in front of him. Doesn't need to, but if Connor's going slow enough, sure, why not? Just go right on around. It's no skin off of anybody's nose. That was Connor Federico. Just being polite, doing the gentlemanly thing, staying out of the way with the race leader coming through. Our race leader coming back onto the oval briefly as he does the cutover right here, going to cut over to make his last run towards the finish line.
The final corner, the final handful of bumps, and the look to the finish line, and Barney the flagman, Andrew Benna, will win the second race. 15 minutes down on the clock. Once again, the 371 Andrew Benna wins here. The Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge is Alexander Rivera, who is just short in P2. The fight for third still stands. Francois Schink in the 318, not close enough to get to Bunyanko, who fortunately is still able to keep up a top 3. Another great podium finish for the 201. Here's David De La Fuente coming through the final portions of this outfield section in the New Hampshire Motor Speedway road course. He will lock up P5. It'll be Kyle Thome just behind him in P6, and it'll be Connor Federico just crossed the start-finish line. He was 4 laps down, and again, he ends up in P7. There's De La Fuente coming out of the final corner. Will main the straightaway here, and will finish in P5. Their Thome will be right behind him. A couple of seconds back there he is in the 004 machine. We'll hop over the grass just a little bit, hop over the bumps, but we'll still see the finish line just all the same, and that checkered flag from Barney the flagman. But all eyes on Andrew Benna, who, by the way, Michael, called his shot, said he was going to spoil Alexander Rivera's party. He did it.
Yeah, indeed he did. Andrew, congratulations on a beautifully won win. How did that drift show on lap 1, lap 2 look in front of you?
You know, when they say that, you know, in every single racing school book that you ever read, you know, point where the cars are when they start to spin and where you see the smoke. That's exactly what I did. I saw smoke and I just said, I'm going for my apex, and I hope that they still aren't there. And sure enough, they all moved out wide, and I just did not look back after that.
So Bunyanko closing in pretty well there at the end. Was there any worry, or did you have it pretty well in hand and you were just kind of controlling it?
Oh, I had it pretty well in hand. I made a little mistake coming out of 3 because every single lap you're fighting these cars coming out of 3 with that transition, and you know, let it get to me a little bit, but caught it and kept going. And I knew as long as I just didn't keep looking back, I was going to be in the clear.
So this was kind of a back to front. You gained 4 positions in this race. That makes you the hard charger, and you kind of tongue in cheek, half jokingly, but I think half serious, called it. You went back to front and made the win.
Yeah, a whole lot of lady luck on my side. You know, I said it because, you know, you never can be too cocky coming into these, but you know, it's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And you know, the Nyan cat machine just kept on chugging.
Yep, it looked good. It was a nice run. You seem to have it very much under control, but I think we're going to take a moment to talk to our number 2. But before we do that, who do you have to thank for this afternoon's win?
Well, of course, we have to thank Mike and Jess and the entire rest of the crew with Formula Hybrid. Without them, this wouldn't have happened at all. We have to thank our friends over at iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations for their wonderful help and support with getting these teams, licenses and getting them up and running for this competition to be able to compete. All of our blue ribbon drivers who have come out and helped these teams with coaching, with giving setup feedback, and being a role model for these drivers. I'd like to thank Wiley Cox, who helped me with a whole lot with getting this virtual racing challenge going. And of course, the New England Region SCCA for, helping to run the dynamic events for the competition, along with, helping to provide these students to have their own fun with cars. And of course, the other platinum sponsors and all of the other sponsors of the Formula Hybrid event.
Well, thanks for being here, Andrew. We really appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate every time I get to race with you on track as well. Always a pleasure to race with you and to see you on track. But meanwhile, I've got to hand it back to Kenneth.
Indeed so. We've got our second place finisher here in the second 15-minute race. We'll have the 212 of Alexander Rivera. And Alex, I know that it wasn't entirely the way you wanted it. You called the race win before we got this race. You finished in P2, which is still remarkable, but how were you able to identify the first couple of laps and then the second bit of contact with Bunya and Co in turn 1?
Yeah, so not quite sure what happened in the first lap. I think that section's kind of tricky, and I guess I naturally take a tighter line through there anyway, so I may have called him out. I haven't seen the replay, so I'm not entirely sure what happened. But yeah, as soon as that contact happened, nothing I could do. I just head down, try and catch up with everybody. Second contact with Boone was just unfortunate. I think the oval section's the trickiest part about this track, because you don't really come down for the apex. You kind of like stay in the banking area. So I think it was unfortunate. I think I heard him say he's on a single monitor setup, as am I. So I think, unfortunately, I just entered into his blind spot just a bit too late, and he came down trying to take his normal racing line, and I was there. So just unfortunate contacts.
Still, nonetheless, you put up a lot of great laps, and of course, no damage obviously helps. So despite the incidents that happened, what went behind this speed in this second race? Because it looked like when Andrew Bena, Bunya, and Co were just kind of lining up first and second, you were that little stealthy driver in third, hanging through and putting up fast lap after fast lap, open behind that little stint where you were just putting on blazing lap time after lap time here at this track.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was just me trying to get comfortable, get into a rhythm. Like I said, in the previous race, I was just trying to control the race up front. So now it was just me trying to settle into a comfortable pace, making sure I'm fast, trying to catch the guys ahead, but obviously not make any mistakes.
Of course, you avoided a lot of the mistakes and still end up with a P2 finish. And after what went through a top 3 finish in the first 2 races, that's pretty successful. Podiums in both races here, 15 minutes apiece here at this New Hampshire Motor Speedway road course. But Alexander, I know, of course, that you participate in the real life portion of this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric and all the things that they do representing Worcester Polytechnic Institute. So who do you got to thank for making this all happen, and who do you got to shout out for all of this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, the big thank you to the team, but everybody who's involved in putting on this. So Formula Hybrid plus Electric crew, you guys did an amazing job at competition, amazing job with the virtual racing challenge. So this has been a ton of fun, and of course, the blue ribbon driver did a really good job at it. A lot of fun. It was really informative talking to him and trying to bounce ideas off of him of how to set up this car and how to go faster around this track. So really, I thank you to everybody who had a part in putting in this competition. And big congrats to Andrew as well.
Well, it's been certainly a lot of fun up here in the broadcast booth. I can only imagine how much fun it is out on the racetrack with these Formula Renault 2.0s at this very interesting New Hampshire Motor Speedway. But of course, Alex, I want to thank you so much for taking part here in this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge finale from New Hampshire. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us here on Podium Esports. Congratulations on both of the finishes, and hopefully we get to see you in the next Virtual Racing Challenge next year, and maybe even in real life next spring as well.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
That is Alexander Rivera. Called his shot on the previous interview. Unfortunately, did not get the win, but still P2. A lot to be happy about. We'll take it to P3. Bunyanko, another top 3 finish here. He finishes 3rd place in the 201. And Michael Johnson, you're caught up with him.
Indeed, I am, Boone. I've labeled another driver in another series Mr. Sneaky, but I got to tell you, you're giving him a big run for his money. You were sneaking up on Andrew at the end there, and a little misplace of the wheel happened, but you were really closing up. Did you think you had a chance to get up there and take that win?
Similar to the first race, it was a incident-packed first lap. I didn't get off the line really well. I dropped a few places, but shortly after the downhill left turn, something happened and I regained my place and got back to second. And I was falling behind. I think I was at a 1 point something gap to 2 second gap to 3 second gap, and I was falling behind and behind. But I think the leader was starting to make some mistakes too, so I started catching up. And then I started being caught up from behind too. So I was playing the mirror game basically.
So yeah, we call that in real life racing driving your mirrors. Did you find you were trying to drive the mirrors too much and not pay attention to Andrew, who was in front of you, and you were indeed closing down on?
I did think I was driving too much for my mirror because in iRacing there's this gigantic rear view mirror on top of the screen, but my car had 2 rear view mirrors and they were a lot more magnified than the one on top, and I was getting distracted by the difference in magnitude. Just wondering how close 3rd place really is in relation to me.
So as you were working your way through the race, did you find that your tires were coming back to life, or were they falling off? Because it seemed to me like they were coming back to life, but I am fully prepared to be completely wrong with that.
I think they were coming to life towards the middle of the run, where I was maintaining or even gaining on Andrew. But towards the end, I think it was a combination of driver error, lack of experience, and that unfortunate incident.
Well, Boone, beautiful drive. Well done. That's 2 podiums today. Fantastic racing. I would love to see you out here again. Hopefully, we'll be able to see you racing again soon. Who do you have to thank for today's podium?
I want to thank the Northeastern Electric Racing team for itself being an organization that allowed me to have this opportunity to race. Thank you to James, our president, and thank you to Mark for getting this car set up. And yeah, my parents for funding my tuition.
Always good to thank the parents for footing the bill for the tuition. I unfortunately ended up joining the army to fund mine, but I was racing alongside my schooling at the same time, so I went for completely different things. But that's a long story for a different day. Bunyanko, beautiful job. Thank you for being here. But with that, I'm going to pass it back to Kenneth.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for organizing this.
So Bunyanko, fantastic 3rd place finish here in the 2nd race after the 16 laps to 15 minutes. But we've got a lot of important things to announce, and for that, we'll throw it to the director of Formula Hybrid Plus Electric, Mike Chapman, for the results of the VRC.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So this portion of the competition was the fun portion. There was a lot of work that went into, a lot of work that the teams put into this before they got to the fun part. So they worked with their blue ribbon drivers. As coaches, they set up their cars, did hot laps, set up the cars again, did hot laps again. So for the virtual racing challenge, we have the final results. So the best initial run, for the first time that the car was set up, was Northeastern University. The best final run for the second time that the teams set up their cars was Worcester Polytech. Now, for all the marbles, what you had to do is you had to show a lap time improvement between the initial run and the final run. And 3rd place for the best time reduction was the University of Victoria. Second place, time reduction, was Carnegie Mellon University. And for first place, the largest trophy is Illinois Institute of Technology. Well done, teams. I know that you worked really hard on this, but it was fun, and it was a lot of fun for the Blue Ribbon drivers, too. So, thanks, guys.
Certainly appreciate it, Mike. Of course, congratulations to all of the teams. It was amazing to watch a lot of them represented here in this virtual racing challenge finale here live tonight from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. So again, thank you, Mike. Thank you to everybody in the Formula Hybrid Plus Electric team and all of the schools and all the drivers, all the people involved that get to have those trophies and all those great placements here at the end of this challenge. We got a couple of more people to interview, though, before we wrap things up here on Podium Esports. We'll take in fifth place finisher in the second race, David De La Fuente in the 2:06. David, of course, welcome to the Podium Esports broadcast booth. What are your thoughts after the first two races here from New Hampshire?
Hey, just first I want to say thank you for this entire event. I mean, I guess first things first, I just would have loved to do better, but I think part of that is just I haven't had much time to practice on my own, so yeah.
And of course, we saw a lot of contact in the opening laps, a lot of drivers getting sideways. And this track, I mean, not the typical road course that we usually see in real life and in the sim. What seemed to be the hardest part about this track? Any turn that you found particularly harder to get through? Any challenging part of the course where you kind of had to learn over the first two races and get used to?
Yeah, for sure. Probably the most difficult part would have been that I can't remember the turn off the top of my head, but the little banking after that hard braking section tends to be a bit difficult. And just past that, when you're going downhill, getting a good line, I found it difficult to get a fast enough line through there to keep myself competitive.
Of course, it was a great race put up by you in both of the 15-minute features, but of course, the biggest news coming from Mike Chapman just a couple of moments ago, Illinois Institute of Technology winning the VRC and taking it all. So how does it feel as you being a driver, a student representing the school, how does it feel to be able to win that?
It feels amazing. I mean, yeah, I just really glad that I was able to do that.
Of course, very proud, of course, no doubt about the team, and of course, yourself, a part of that Illinois Institute of Technology. And of course, David, of course, our appreciation to you for taking the time out to drive some laps here in this Formula Renault 2.0 tonight from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us here in the broadcast booth. And again, congratulations on the feat in the VRC. Awesome to see, and I'm sure that you guys will all celebrate sometime sooner than later. So thank you, David. We appreciate the time, and we hope to see you sooner than later.
Thank you.
David De La Fuente out of Illinois Institute of Technology, the Aero team lead position on that group. Of course, awesome to see them get P1 in the VRC. We'll get another chance to talk to another driver. It's Connor Federigo in his car, the 002, ending up in 7th in that second race. Michael Johnson, you've got him in the broadcast booth.
Well, Connor, difficult times here in iRacing, but third
Indeed.
in the VRC. Well done.
Great, thank you.
So, how is the transition from real life to virtual racing working? How much do you find is working for you from your real life knowledge to iRacing, and how much is completely backwards?
It's hard to say. I don't have too much real life driving experience other than I've done a couple autocross events in my personal car. As far as the tuning side, I don't have too much experience with making adjustments on a car for performance either, so it's quite a new experience for me all around.
So, as the powertrain sub-team lead, is there something maybe you've learned from working here in iRacing that you might take back to the real world?
Yeah, sure. Things such as like tuning the differential settings would definitely be something that I could take back to the real world now that I have sort of a better understanding of what changes can make on the car's performance.
Yeah, I'm a big nerd for getting that preload right. I love tuning the preload in just right so I get that on throttle oversteer when I'm coming out of a corner and a little bit of understeer when I come into it. But it's always a challenge to find that spot so you don't get too much and loop it coming out.
Yeah, for sure.
So, who do you have to thank for today's race and for coming in third in the VRC?
I'd like to thank my fellow hybrid team members for all their support, of course. Yeah, that's mostly it, probably. Thank you also to the Blue Ribbon driver Andrew for all the advice that he gave me, and that was a large part of what was allowed me to improve the time so well.
Well, thank you for being here, Connor. It was a pleasure to talk to you, but I need to pass it back to Kenneth now.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we'll send it to another driver here that took part in this virtual racing challenge from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. It's time to bring in Kyle Thome out of the Milwaukee School of Engineering, the powertrain lead. As a part of that group, Kyle, of course, welcome to the Podium Esports booth. And how was it taking those first two trips around New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the first and second races?
A little disappointing. So we had quite a lot of technical issues coming up to the race, but big shout out to my friend Tristan for letting me come over and use his sim. And, first race, we kind of got bottled up in an incident with turn 3. Thankfully, we were able to result back to a 4th. And then second race, unfortunately, just had some issues, not really testing the car in the longer stints. And as the tires were going away, the brake bias was a little too far to the back, and that was the end of our race. So, although it was still a really fun experience, and I'm happy you guys all put this on.
It was still a lot of fun watching you out on track here in the broadcast booth. And you're one of the drivers here out of the group that's been one of the longest tenured ones on the iRacing service. And of course, last year was the first event here in this virtual racing challenge for Formula Hybrid Plus Electric, this being the second. So were there any things that you could take from your longer tenured sim racing experience to help out with tonight's two races?
Yeah, I think working with the team on the setups and everything, we had two people that were very good, have been racing iRacing for a long time, and Kevin, our future chassis lead, was really good with teaching me how to use tune the downforce cars, and the base setup was obviously really pushy on these cars, and to be able to balance it out and make it a little better, it was good to have two veterans there to kind of be able to figure it out together.
All right, Kyle. Well, I know things didn't go the greatest in the first two races, but nonetheless, it's still awesome to see you out on the track along with everybody else in this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Virtual Racing Challenge from New Hampshire. Of course, on behalf of our entire team, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and it was a lot of fun. Hopefully, we get to do this sometime soon, and hopefully get to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you guys. We'll definitely be out for redemption in the next one.
That is Kyle Thome of the Milwaukee School of Engineering, the powertrain lead, out a part of that group. Great to see him out on the track along with everybody else. And Michael, just before we wrap things up and give a thanks to all the people that make this possible. I mean, great two races. We had a lot of different scenarios, some crashes, some movements here and there. A lot of great racing, though, overall. And, of course, a big congratulations to all of the teams, all of the people that were able to place high in the VRC this year.
A lot of great racing, both here virtually and in the real world for the VRC. Love seeing students come together and work as teams. I think it's too often misunderstood how much of a team sport racing is. Every time I have a microphone in front of my face when I get out of the car, my first thanks is to the team. Sponsors come after that, but the team is what got me there. If it weren't for them, if they didn't get the wheels on right, if we didn't have everything torqued down perfectly, if the right rear was a 16th of an inch too high, I can tell you from experience, it will make a difference. And knowing that and having people who know that on your team and making those changes and getting those things to work right, that's the only reason you actually get to the podium.
And most times in racing, we see the driver as the only face in that team and the performance. But of course, no doubt about it, it's a huge team effort. So many people a part of it. And that's what we get to showcase here on Podium Esports with the Formula Hybrid Plus Electric. Just the effort that teams put in together for the real life cars and then the drivers having some fun here on the sim here from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And hopefully we get to see some of the great things happen next year when the real life competition happens once again in the spring of 2023. So, of course, a lot of partners that makes this all happen for Formula Hybrid Plus Electric, everybody that was a part of it. Of course, all the sponsors you see on your screen, we can basically say all of them. It would take us a while, but countless amount of sponsors that help this Formula Hybrid Plus Electric team and all the companies that makes this happen each and every year. So you see them listed on your screen. Of course, without them, none of this would be possible. So a huge thanks to everybody on that list, all of the companies there, all the logos you see on the screen for helping make things happen. Of course, along with iRacing being the sim for the platform here tonight on the Virtual Racing Challenge. So for everybody at Formula Hybrid Plus Electric, for Mike Chapman, for Jessica Kinsey, for everybody here, for Andrew Benna, all the people that we got to talk to, all the drivers, and of course, all of us here at Podium Esports, for Gary Sexton and John Theodore, for our producer this evening, Ryan Bauer, for our camera builder, Dougie Beard, and of course, for my colleague alongside in the booth, Michael Johnson, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Saying so long, good night from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Couple of winners, Formula Hybrid Plus Electric Challenge comes to a close. Hopefully we get to see you next year in 2023. Good night.